Good morning. This is TVP World. You're watching World News. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and these are the latest headlines. Ambassadors from European Union member states are set to hold an emergency meeting on Sunday after Donald Trump threatened tariffs against countries opposing his bid for Greenland. The proposed tariffs would apply only to the 8 countries taking part in ongoing military drills on the island. Writing on his social media platform Truth Social, Trump said 10% tariffs on Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, Great Britain, the Netherlands, and Finland would take effect on February 1st. He said the rate would raise to 25% on June 4th and continue increasing until an agreement allows the United States to gain control of Greenland. Trump argues the move is necessary for national security, claiming Russia or China could otherwise take over the island. Denmark's Joint Arctic Command dispute that claim, with its commander saying no Chinese or Russian ships have been seen off Greenland's coast. The commander also confirmed that U.S. troops have been invited to take part in exercises on the island. European leaders are closing ranks after President Trump threatened new tariffs unless Denmark agrees to sell Greenland. From Brussels to Stockholm, officials condemned the move as blackmail, vowing to defend European sovereignty and warning the United States against triggering a deeper rift in transatlantic relations.
The EU stands in full solidarity with Denmark and the people of Greenland. Dialogue remains essential, and we are committed to building on the process begun already last week between the Kingdom of Denmark and the US. Tariffs would undermine transatlantic relations and risk a dangerous downward spiral. Europe will remain united, coordinated, and committed to upholding its sovereignty.
We will not be blackmailed. Only Denmark and Greenland can decide on issues concerning Denmark and Greenland. I will always stand up for my country and our allied neighbors. This is an EU issue that affects many more countries than those now being singled out. Sweden is currently holding intensive discussions with other EU countries, as well as Norway and the United Kingdom, to coordinate a response. Tariff threats are unacceptable and have no place in this context. Europeans will respond to them in a united and coordinated manner should they be confirmed. We will know how to uphold European sovereignty. It is in this spirit that I will speak with our European partners.
A bipartisan group of U.S. lawmakers says Greenland is not facing any immediate security threats. The U.S. Senate delegation met with authorities in both Greenland and Denmark. Their visit came as large protests broke out against Donald Trump's expansionist policies.
Operation Arctic Endurance kicked off in Greenland on Saturday. The Denmark-led joint military exercise involves Germany, Sweden, Norway, Finland, the Netherlands and the UK, and comes after a week of intense diplomatic efforts to assuage tensions over the Arctic territory.
We share the concern with US, with Canada and other Arctic states that Russia and China are working together in the Arctic Ocean. And if we are going to defend NATO's northern flank, we simply have to step up, we have to work together.
Major General Søren Andersen, head of Denmark's Joint Arctic Command, emphasizes that although the US isn't taking part in the exercise, it remains a vital partner.
We have a very close relationship with the US military, so I will not go into the political side of it. For me, it is about Russia.
The exercise comes days after the White House meeting between the Trump administration officials and Greenlandic and Danish leaders failed to bring a breakthrough, as the US president continues to talk about annexing the island. On Friday, a bipartisan delegation of US lawmakers traveled to Copenhagen to meet with the leaders of Denmark and Greenland to reassure them of congressional support, despite President Trump's threats to seize the Arctic island.
Greenland needs to be viewed as our ally, not as an asset. And I think that's what you're hearing with this delegation.
And part of the point of this trip is to have a bipartisan group of members of Congress listen respectfully to our friends, our trusted allies and partners here in Denmark and from Greenland, and to go back to the United States and share those perspectives so that we can lower the temperature and have a more constructive dialogue about the best path forward.
Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski ensured that the American public does not support the idea of annexing the island.
It is important to underscore that when you ask the American people whether or not they think it is a good idea for the United States to acquire Greenland, the vast majority, some 75%, will say, we do not think that that is a good idea.
Donald Trump, however, remains adamant that the island is vital for U.S. security and even went as far as to suggest imposing tariffs on countries that oppose its annexation.
I may put a tariff on countries if they don't go along with Greenland, because we need Greenland for national security, so I may do that.
Polls suggest that the U.S. public is firmly against taking the island by force, with the latest poll by the Quinnipiac University estimating that 86% of voters oppose the idea.
After 25 years of negotiations, the trade agreement between the European Union and the South American trade bloc Mercosur was signed on Saturday, January 17th in Paraguay. The deal carries major political and economic weight. More in the story.
We choose fair trade over tariffs. We choose a productive, long-term partnership over isolation. And above all, we intend to deliver real and tangible benefits to our people and our businesses.
In trade, more investments mean new jobs and opportunities on both sides of the Atlantic. We are already major suppliers of agricultural products to the European Union, but we will not limit ourselves to the eternal role of commodity exporters. We want to produce and sell higher value industrial goods.
The agreement was signed on Saturday in Paraguay's capital Asunción by European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and key South American leaders. The boon of this agreement for EU producers is the access to the markets of Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay and Uruguay at a lower price and with fewer obstacles. Germany and, to a smaller extent, Italy will find themselves at the winning end of exports, especially when it comes to producers of capital goods like tech equipment and machinery. The deal also ensures that labeled goods from EU member states are protected, including Italy's Parmigiano Reggiano cheese and French champagne. In 2024 alone, the EU-Mercosur trade amounted to roughly 111 billion euro.
Protesters in Serbia continued anti-government demonstrations on Saturday, calling for sweeping political reforms and accountability after the deadly 2024 Novi Sad station disaster. Students, activists, and other demonstrators filled the streets of Novi Sad, demanding an end to corruption and a resignation of official they blame for the tragedy. The protests were sparked by anger over the Novi Sad railway canopy collapse, which killed 16 people due to negligence during renovation work. The movement shows no signs of slowing. Mass protests that began in November 2024 had now continued for more than a year across Serbia, with demonstrators calling for the resignation of President Aleksandar Vučić and accusing his government of widespread corruption. Tensions between the United States and Iran escalated on Saturday as President Donald Trump openly called for a change in Iran's leadership, sharply criticizing Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei amid widespread unrest. In remarks to the news organization Politico, the president portrayed Khamenei as an oppressive leader who has mismanaged Iran for decades. Trump argued that real authority should be built on respect, not fear or violence, and said Iran needs new leadership after what he called years of destructive rule. His comments come as nationwide protests in Iran, driven by economic hardship, face violent crackdowns that have left thousands dead. Thousands of demonstrators took to the streets in cities across Europe on Saturday to show solidarity with the anti-government protesters in Iran, calling for a free and democratic country.
Sparked by economic hardship in late December, the protests in Iran have reportedly resulted in thousands of deaths and tens of thousands of arrests, marking the country's largest unrest in years. In Warsaw, Iranians living in Poland joined local supporters near the presidential palace to call for help in restoring democracy in their country and bringing those responsible for human rights abuses to justice.
They are killing our compatriots during the ongoing demonstrations. Those detained during the protests are returned to their families deceased, often only after their families are forced to pay tens of thousands of dollars. Some bodies are returned without organs. We need the world to hear us and to help topple our government, the Islamic government. We do not want military intervention, but we need international awareness and pressure. The world must stop supporting those responsible for this massacre and hold them accountable for destroying our lives over the past 24 years.
In Rome, the march was led by Carlo Calenda, Italian senator and secretary of the Azione party, who urged the international community not to remain silent while Iranians face violent repression.
Today, we honor those who fight for freedom in Iran, and not only for their personal freedom, but for the idea of freedom. They fight for all those who want to live in a free state. And we cannot stand idly by and watch Iranians being killed by the regime without taking action.
Marching with signs and chanting, Iranians in France drew attention to the ongoing crisis in their homeland. Similar protests also took place in Berlin, where large crowds gathered to stand against the actions of the Iranian government. Protesters across Europe remain determined to speak about the situation in Iran, drawing global attention to the country's struggle for freedom and human rights.
From the Pacific to Europe, governments are tightening rules on how young people use social media, and Poland may be next. As lawmakers consider restrictions for children under 15, the debate over whether social media platforms are shaping young minds in ways that are only now becoming clear is growing.
Australia did it. Malaysia is doing it. France, Spain, Italy, and Denmark are discussing it. And now Poland may be joining the club of countries banning social media for teens.
We follow Australia's example. That means we expect big tech companies not to allow children access to harmful content that is available on their platforms, essentially any content, unless they choose to verify it. This is exactly what Australia introduced in December. The difference is that we consider 16 years of age excessive. We believe that 15 is a reasonable threshold.
Poland's centrist ruling coalition is expected to prepare a parliamentary bill by the end of February.
I believe that children under the age of 15 should be supervised by their parents and also have less access to social media.
The Minister of Education says these solutions are necessary to protect young people from online threats.
As a father, I think this ban is the right thing to do. Children should have access to specific content, not just any content. I think up to 18, not even up to 15.
Even if, quote, it may arouse a lot of emotions.
Freedom is a top value for all people in Europe. It should be freedom. As soon as you try to limit that, that's going wrong.
No one wants to be deprived of means of contact with their peers.
But why is there such a strong common belief that social media is harmful to young children?
The younger someone is when they start using social media, the greater the risk that it will negatively affect their mental health. The growing wave of mental health disorders among young people is largely linked to how social media affects the brain itself. Not even the content at first. Content is a secondary factor. The primary issue is how quickly the brain receives pleasure while scrolling, and how difficult it then becomes to find satisfaction in everyday activities.
A recent report by NASK, Poland's National Institute on Computer Science Research, found that Polish children are starting their digital journeys at an increasingly early age. As many as 40% of children receive a smartphone before their 9th birthday, and the internet is becoming a daily part of their lives. They spend an average of nearly 5 hours a day online.
People don't want to talk to each other, they're just in their echo chambers, and I think social media makes it all worse.
I don't think if you're too young, it wouldn't be an attack to your freedom. You have better stuff to do than being on social media.
Social media content is not adequately filtered, it is not adapted for children to see, and it is impossible to filter it in such a way that inappropriate content is unavailable to children.
World leaders have talked for years about restricting children's access to social media. Now the talk is crystallizing into action. For TVP World, I'm Aisha Badja.
And with that, we conclude this edition of World News. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.